Serious, what is a seemingly harmless parenting mistake that will majorly fuck up a child later in life?
Being overprotective as a parent. Or just not listening to your child daring.
Anytime a child is playing with a child of the opposite gender, and they respond, "Oh, who's your boy, girlfriend?" That shit completely stopped me from even speaking to girls until damn near high school.
Telling kids they have to finish their plate. Sometimes there's too much food. I was overeating for years and it took a lot of work to break the habit and shed the extra weight.
Not following through with your promises. If you told your child you were buying ice cream tomorrow in the hopes that they'd forget, and the next day when they ask you tell them no, they'll see you as unreliable. Ice cream is just the first thing that came to my mind. I'm sure someone else can explain better what I'm trying to say here without sounding so ridiculous.
My mom used to go through my trash. She always said it was to make sure I wasn't throwing out anything important, but I know she also just wanted to be nosy. She used to rummage through my drawers and read very private adult fanfictions that I used to write and then confront me about them. I used to draw some really fucked up gory shit to vent my teenage angst. She'd find these drawings and, again, shame me for my fascination with that sort of content. She did this all the way into my adulthood. The last time, she rummaged through my sock drawer and found a box of condoms, and confronted me about it at work. We used to work together in the same department, and shamed me for having sex with my boyfriend. At fucking work. She humiliated me and shamed me until I cried. I was probably about 25 when this happened, and I moved out shortly after. I'm 31 and just now starting to learn to respect my boyfriend's boundaries and privacy. For a large portion of our relationship, I would go through his very personal belongings, throw out items of his that I didn't view as valuable, and just violate his privacy in all sorts of ways. I didn't think anything of it at the time. It just didn't strike me as wrong. Bless him for sticking by me for 8 years. I have really come a long way, and I have learned to stop being so intrusive and controlling. But damn it, I didn't think it would take 2 decades to unlearn that one.
When I was 4, my parents adopted a kitten. Of course, I had never seen anything quite so delightful before, and I could barely keep my hands off the little fur ball. So about 2 or 3 days passed. I get up in the morning and walk out and ask, "Where is the kitten?" And my parents told me that he died, implying that my roughhousing had killed it. I was terrified to touch an animal for several years thereafter. In fact, they had simply given the kitten back to the people they got it from.
Well, realistically, it'd be a helicopter parent. You always want to look out for your kid, right? Make sure they're not doing things they're supposed to do, walk in without knocking. It ruins a relationship with a kid, because even though you have a sense of privacy, the kid doesn't and will always paranoid of anyone entering their room without warning. It ruins a kid. Would my mom let me do this? Is she okay with it?
I grew up in a very strict Asian household. My parents were very strict on the "never wake us up" policy. To this day I get very anxious and refuse to wake people up, in fear of being yelled at and locked in a closet. I'm 22 years old.
The saddest part of this question is that my mom had done so many things that everyone is saying is bad, not hugging, praising, telling me to suck it up, etc. So let me give one that I feel would have helped me out growing up. ***, do not be afraid to admit when you are wrong or when you make mistakes to your child. ***. My parents would go out of their way to justify any mistake they made and make it seem as if they were right no matter what the situation was. Gave me a pretty messed up view of right and wrong, as well as learning from mistakes, but was fixed by my grandma. It's a long story that I don't want to get into right now. Edit. Wow, 11k and silver on my first ever comment, and it pertains to my shitty childhood tie. But on a serious note, I want to reiterate the importance of not only advice, but the consequences of not taking said advice. My parents never congratulated me on good grades, doing the right thing, etc. They would only say, "That's what you're supposed to do," or "You better keep it up," and threaten me if I didn't live up to their expectations. So now, as an adult, I'm insanely suspicious and at the same time worried of people complimenting me or congratulating me for anything I do.
Not having them do chores. My parents pushed me to be academic, so doted on me hand and foot as a kid to make more room for study. When you're too young and stupid to know any better, you think it's a blessing. When I moved out to uni, I didn't really know how to clean, when to clean, what to clean with, how to wash clothes, how to get them dry, etc. The only thing I could do is cook and binge drink. That's no way to bring up a kid, and it's a steep learning curve doing all that stuff for the first time in your early 20s. It sounds like a super lame answer, but make sure every kid does their fair share of chores.
Treating crying as if it's something only weak people do. My dad in particular used to yell at me for crying, which only made me cry more, which made him yell more, and you get the point. In high school, I tried to bring up the possibility of me having anxiety problems that I'd spoken to the school counselor about because my friends made me go since they were worried. He told me I was just a drama queen. I can't express that I'm anxious or stressed around my dad because others have it worse. Even now I'm 21 and seeing a psychiatrist in a couple weeks because I've just felt so bad lately and I would never let my dad know. I think I'd rather die than my dad know I've been seeing a psychiatrist and discussing the possibility of me having OCD with said psychiatrist, which does explain a lot and is actually kind of comforting for me to know, because he'd get so mad at me for being weak.
Pretty much telling you that whatever activity that you enjoy doing is annoying or dumb. I used to love to sing. I was in chorus and would play my favorite songs over and over to learn the words. Not only did my sisters tease me for it, but my parents told me to shut up constantly. So I stopped singing. I must have been terrible, right? I sing when I'm alone, or jokingly with some friends. What really broke me was when I went to visit everyone for the holidays and my sister said that she was surprised I never pursued singing since I seemed to love it so much when I was younger. I nearly started crying and had to bite my tongue so I wouldn't scream at her for being one of the reasons I stopped. It's always funny for the ones doing the teasing, but it actually hurts the ones being teased. Especially when it's coming from people who are supposed to love you.
Telling them that the family members who are mean to them or neglect them, love them.
Telling your kid they are always a winner. We love our kids and want them to feel special, but it's setting them up to be disappointed later in life when they find out not everyone can win. Let them feel the disappointments early on, and teach them it's okay. They'll grow up better able to handle the stresses of life.
Getting them involved in problems they have no control over. My parents felt the need to keep me in the loop regarding our pending foreclosure and argue in front of me over which one was to blame when I was 10. What possible reason is there to share that with a kid? I barely slept for months. I was convinced the cops were gonna bust in at midnight and throw us all outside.
The belief that they won't remember because they're young. I remember.
Not stopping when your child says stop. Whether it's teasing, or tickling, or resting. Kids who have parents that don't respect their boundaries always seem to end up being the biggest dicks and bullies because they've learned they don't have to respect other people's feelings. Saying, I don't care who started it. I grew up with friends whose siblings would target the one with the bad temper, provoke them into a rage, then cry and play victim when they got slapped. In this case, it does matter who started it. A parent has to make it clear that violence isn't okay, but neither is provoking someone into said violence. It doesn't matter that said person never hit or kicked while their sibling did. They never would have gotten hurt in the first place if they didn't encourage the aggression to begin with. Children are clever and will find loopholes in their parents' rules. Parents need to be better and snuff out that kind of BS when it starts. If they don't, they'll raise a manipulator and a scapegoat. One will use them and one will resent them. It's a lose-lose all because of a simple rule.
Never telling your child that you were wrong and that you're sorry. Just never once occurred. My father never once said I'm sorry to me. He was human, there were plenty of times he should have. My kids have heard from me plenty. Treating your young child as a friend you're venting to. It's extremely traumatic to be your parent's diary.
Sticking through a toxic fucking relationship for the kids. It doesn't help. Part ways, be good parents, spend quality time together with the kids, but don't stay together and fucking hate your lives under the guise of it being for the kids. We pick up on your shit, it's a terrible example to set.
Using them as props for jokes in public. Glad you got a kick out of it, Dad.
Don't smother your kids. My mom quit having her own life the moment my brother and I were born. She was an incredibly devoted and loving mother, was very kind to us, but when we were born she stopped having friends, did not work, and was home every single day from when I was born to when I moved out in my early 20s. She was very easy to upset because she had no other source of self-esteem, and any time I screwed up, and I screwed up a lot, it was as if I had levied a very personal attack against her. In the last 5 years or so before I left, I don't think we had a single conversation that didn't drive her to tears, and I promise I wasn't that bad. I constantly felt cornered and stressed and fell into depression as a defense mechanism, and she took my resulting lack of performance very personally, creating a very treacherous cycle that was only broken when I enlisted and finally got away. To this day I often feel like I'm a bad person who failed to live up to her love.
Never showing up for events. I remember my parents didn't come to most of my chorus concerts. It really sucked to see my classmates' families cheer them on while my parents were absent. I brought home one of my chorus program papers to show my parents, and I found it in the trash the next day. I was sad because I wanted to keep it, but seeing it in the trash, I didn't want it anymore. Edit, I love my parents and I don't blame them for not showing up. They are small business owners and it was hard for them to find people who could work for them whenever I had concerts or anything. It still hurt though, sad face. Also the replies to this are very sad. I'm sorry that a lot of you guys went through similar experiences. Second edit, also my mum is a clean freak. She'll discard or move any stray papers laying around. She probably didn't think much of it. She might not have even realized what it was. She can't read English that well, it's her third language. After I told her, she apologized to me, so it's okay. I thought I should add that my little sister and grandma would come to them, but my relationship with my grandma isn't great. It's just not the same as having your parents there, if that makes sense.
Discouraging them from asking questions. Yes, it can be annoying to keep hearing, but why daddy, mummy? But I've met far too many adults who admit they stopped asking questions because as a kid their parents would shut them up or be like, there she goes asking questions again. Inquisitive minds need that fostered.
Consider subscribing.